First encounter. They say the wilderness gets in your head after a few weeks. Too quiet, too big, too far from anything that feels real. I didn't believe it until my third rotation at the Deloro pit, north of Thunder Bay. Third shift on haul truck duty. Dead of winter. Pitch black sky. Everything's frozen. Even the damn stars feel sharp. It started around 2:40 a.m. I was hauling overburden from the pit floor to the northern dump when my radio crackled. Not the usual dispatcher call. This was low, distorted, a growl maybe, then a voice I didn't recognize, garbled, almost choking. Something about a dozer unit. Truck 309 to dispatch, I said. You guys hearing that on Channel 6? Nothing, just static. A few minutes later, dispatch called to ask if anyone had eyes on Daryl from the workshop. Last seen heading down to check dozer 12. I stopped at the top of the ramp and looked around. The pit floor was quiet. Off to the east, near the edge of the tree line, I could see the lights from dozer 12, still on, unmoving. It wasn't on the pit floor like it should have been, just parked out there far enough to be strange but close enough that I could make out the silhouette in the beam. I picked up the radio again and offered to check it out. I was bored, mostly, and a little curious. They cleared me. I nosed the truck away from the ramp and rumbled off into the black. When I pulled up in front of the dozer, I didn't get out right away. The cab door was open, no sign of Daryl. My headlights caught something on the side panel. Long, deep scratches down the yellow paint. Not scraped, clawed. Against better judgment, I stepped out, boots crunching on hard-packed snow. The cold bit hard. I walked towards the machine, then around. Then I saw it. Blood. Big smear of it down the snow behind the tracks, leading off toward the blasted rock piles, maybe 300 feet away. I froze for a moment, then quickly turned back. My hands were shaking. I walked fast, too fast, back to the truck, head low, heart pounding. I climbed up into the cab and slammed the door shut. Instead of driving away, I swung the truck in a wide arc and began circling the rock piles. The floodlights on the haul truck lit up the snow in massive cones of white. If something, or someone, was still out there, I was going to find it. I suspected a bear or a pack of wolves, so I would be safe up in the cab. The truck's engine growled low as I crept along the edge of the piles. The tires crunched over the frozen earth, slow and steady. I scanned the light for movement, any flicker, any shadow shifting where it shouldn't. At first, nothing. Then movement, a flicker in the far beam, just for a second, like something ducked behind cover. I slammed the brakes and shifted into neutral. The beam lingered on the spot, nothing. I reached for the spotlight control, aiming it manually toward where the shape had been. Nothing again, but my gut screamed otherwise. There was something out there, hiding in the shadows of blasted stone. I held my breath. I almost missed them. Tracks in the snow, huge. Long strides, toes splayed like a wolf, but the depth and spacing were wrong. Long, heavy. They circled the outer rock pile once, then doubled back toward the truck. My stomach dropped. I hadn't seen anything near the cab. I checked the mirrors. Nothing. Then I leaned toward the passenger side window and saw it. Just the tip of a shadow, slipping past the rear tire, out of view. I slid down in the seat, holding my breath, trying not to move. My eyes locked on the passenger side mirror. At first, nothing. Then a shape emerged. Tall, too tall, rising behind the rear tire like a man pulling himself upright. Its shoulders were grotesquely hunched, thick with muscle, with patches of greasy fur stuck to cracked skin. The head was elongated, unmistakably canine but distorted. The snout too short, the jaws slack and twitching. One of its eyes was shut. The other glowed faintly yellow in the reflection. Steam curled from its open mouth with each slow breath, revealing jagged, uneven teeth like broken knives. Its legs were bent backward at the knees, digitigrade, ending in paws that gripped the snow like hands. It stood upright, but swayed constantly, as if its body was struggling to maintain its posture, and it was looking for me. Then it moved, a single step toward the cab of the truck. Slow, deliberate. I slid further down in the seat, heart jackhammering. My fingers fumbled across the console, searching for anything. Horn, spotlight, The damn radio. Another step. It placed one clawed hand on the tire, examining it. I didn't think. I slammed the horn with my palm. The blare shattered the silence. The creature recoiled, arms flailing, and vanished from view. I stayed frozen, waiting for it to circle back. I turned slowly in the seat, eyes scanning the mirrors. Nothing. Then a flash of movement in the far side mirror. A long, low shape slinking along the opposite side. It was still there. It was circling me. A few seconds later, the faint creak of metal. I snapped my head to the left. For a long moment, nothing. I stared out the window at the top of the ladder, muscles locked tight, trying to steady my breath. The cold from the glass seeped through my jacket sleeve as I leaned against it. Then movement, a shape, black against the night, shifting just beyond the edge of the window frame. A clawed hand rose into view, thick, knuckled, and too long. It latched onto the outer rung. Snow clung to its fur in crusted clumps, and the claws scraped against the metal with a sound that made my teeth hurt. Then another hand appeared, followed by the glint of an eye just below the glass. It was climbing. I stared down through the window, not daring to breathe. The thing's head rose slowly, just enough for one glowing eye to meet mine. It froze there, one clawed hand on the top rung, the other braced against the side rail. We locked eyes. Its face was a nightmare stitched to muscle and instinct. Mangled, leathery skin stretched over sharp cheekbones, with deep, puckered scars trailing from brow to jaw. Where fur still clung, it was mottled and wet-looking, like it had been dragged through ash. Its jaw hung open at an unnatural angle, twitching as if it couldn't quite close, revealing teeth that didn't belong in any animal, long, mismatched yellow and black with rot, some bent sideways like they'd grown in wrong. Its nose flared wide, split and scarred, pulling in air with a low, phlegmy snort. Then it tilted its head, just slightly, like it was trying to understand me or smell me. It leaned closer, snout brushing the glass. A deep, rattling exhale fogged the window. I panicked. My hand flew to the gear lever and shoved it into drive. The truck lurched forward with a metallic groan, the cab rocking violently. I slammed my foot on the accelerator. Outside, claws screeched against the window frame as the creature lost its grip. There was a thud and a faint roar as it hit the side railing and dropped out of sight. I didn't wait. I gunned it across the snow, headlights shaking with every bounce. My hands were slick on the wheel. Behind me, I swore I could still see it. Running after the truck, not giving up. I didn't stop driving until I hit the main compound. When I finally parked near the site office, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I stayed in the cab for another 5 minutes. Engine running, lights on. Finally, dispatch called me up on the radio, asking what I was doing. I told them Daryl was missing and the dozer was abandoned. I didn't say anything else. By morning, I was packed. I told the supervisor I was done. Burned out. Not coming back. They booked me on the next flight south. I didn't sleep that night, even in town. Couldn't. Since then, I've replayed that night in my head again and again. I've tried to explain it. Bears, exhaustion, fatigue messing with my eyes, but nothing fits. I can still see its face. I can still feel the weight of its stare through that window. Whatever it wasn't just some animal. It understood what the truck was and how to get to me. Then it found me and studied me. I've read the stories, the old ones, the kind people laugh off until they see something they can't explain. And no matter how I cut it, one word keeps circling back, scraping at the edge of my thoughts like the thing's claws on metal. Werewolf. Second encounter. My name's Olivia Tran. I'm a geologist with 6 seasons under my belt. Most of them spent knee-deep in snow, mud, or bureaucratic red tape. I'm the one they fly in when a promising anomaly turns into a full drill program. Rock samples, core logging, mapping structures. If it's in the ground and might make someone rich, it's my job to find it. Usually, the worst thing I deal with is busted chainsaws or frozen drill lines. But what happened at Kino changed how I look at the wilderness forever. The quiet out here wasn't natural. It was too still, too perfect, like the whole forest was holding its breath. I'd been working at remote exploration camps long enough to know when something felt wrong. This one, tucked into a frozen patch of forest east of Kino City, had the kind of silence that made your teeth itch. There were 5 of us on site, 2 drillers, a camp cook, a junior tech, and myself. We were pulling cores from a mineralized shear zone that had the investors giddy, but the samples weren't the only thing coming up strange. There were signs, subtle at first. The cook swore he saw something move behind the outhouse one morning, but when we checked, there were no tracks. The junior tech said he heard a low howl from the tree line around 3 a.m., followed by a long stretch of silence that set his nerves on edge. Jamie caught a glimpse of something darting between trees near Drill 2, but it vanished before he could even curse. I brushed it all off as nerves, until the 5th night, when we found a fresh set of footprints, bare, loosely human-shaped, but too long, in the snow behind the storage tent, leading into the woods. That same night, Jamie shared something weird at dinner. He'd worked a uranium camp up near Baker Lake. Said a rig had to be abandoned after 2 guys went missing on night shift. Nobody ever found them. But the next team found a dead wolf 20 feet up a pine tree. Nobody could explain how it got there. Bears don't drag their kills up into a tree. Nothing out here does. Jamie said the drill foreman called it quits after that and never worked up north again. The night after that, the markings began to appear. Deep gouges on the plywood walls of the core shack. Claw marks, spaced too wide to be a lynx or even a bear. One of the drillers, Jamie, thought it was just some pissed-off wolverine. But wolverines don't piss across all your gear bags, and they don't leave piles of bones behind the mess tent. I started sleeping with my steel-toe boots on. The next night, the generator died around midnight. No lights, no heat, no radio. We checked the fuel, full. The lines had been ripped apart, deliberately. We moved into the core shack to wait for sunlight. It was the only structure with a locking door. About an hour after we had locked the door, something approached the shack. We heard something breathing, heavy, wet, rhythmic, moving slowly around the outside of the shack. Then came the scratching, long drags across the siding, like claws tracing the seams. It circled the shack once, then again, slower the second time. We could hear the boards creak under its weight as it leaned against different sections. Then the doorknob rattled, not yanked or pounded, twisted, tested, like the thing was familiar with how it worked. A second later, a low thud against the hinges, as if it was checking their strength. It wasn't random. It was methodical. It tested every wall, every corner, returning to the door several times. I kept peeking through the crack between the plywood boards. What I saw didn't make sense. It was too big to be a wolf, too thin to be a bear. It moved low, dragging its clawed fingers, yes, fingers, across the walls like it was reading the wood. Its legs were all wrong. Its spine moved like it was broken, but it wasn't hurt. It was searching, and as I watched it, something in me shifted. This wasn't just a predator. It was examining us, probing the structure like it knew we were inside and wanted to test how strong we were, how long we'd last. It moved with intent, with purpose. There was no fear in it, no hesitation, only calculation. And for the first time in my life, I felt like prey. Then Jamie panicked and fired a flare through the tiny window. The thing shrieked, an awful, distorted howl, and vanished into the dark. It didn't return that night. Maybe it suspected that we were armed. Maybe it somehow knew about human weapons. At first light, we packed everything we could carry and hiked to the airstrip. The pilot didn't ask questions when he saw our faces. He just helped us load. I haven't been back to a fly-in site since, and I don't plan to. They pulled more samples from that shear zone later that year. Struck silver, big payday, or so you would think. But they never mind it, because something still lives out there. And I think we weren't the only ones who encountered it. Third encounter. My name's Raj. I was a wastewater technician for a private oil sands operation northeast of Fort McMurray. Night shift. 2 weeks in, 2 weeks out. Lonely job, but it paid well and gave me space. I liked the quiet, until my world was shattered by that thing. It began with the fence alerts. 3 nights in a row, motion sensors tripped along the south containment berm. Every time security showed up, there was nothing. They blamed it on wind, wolves, thermal drift. I stopped reporting them. I just made my rounds and kept my head down. Then came the tracks. I found them near Pump Station 4, pressed deep into the frost like snowshoes made for something upright and heavy. No claw drags, just perfect impressions. 5 toes, long, too long. I took photos. The site manager deleted them the next day. "You're lucky it wasn't a write-up," he told me. The next week, the birds stopped coming. Magpies, gulls, even the ravens. Not one. The whole pit went still. One night I saw it. I was checking the valves along the tailings line when the lights behind me flickered. At first I thought it was just a power hiccup, but then I felt something. Pressure. Like the air itself had sunk around me. I turned, and it was just there, silhouetted by the blinking LED floodlight, maybe 30 feet away, standing upright, hunched, taller than a man, maybe 7 feet, maybe more, covered in something like fur but irregular, wet-looking, clumped. Its shoulders rolled forward like it had to fold itself to walk. It didn't move. I backed away slowly, didn't run, didn't scream. I made it to the shack and locked the steel door, heart pounding so loud I could barely hear. I watched from the small window. It crept closer, slow and deliberate, until it was just outside. Then it started examining the wall. At first, it just hovered there, massive shoulders hunched. Then it raised one hand, long, veined fingers tipped with thick, dark claws, and tapped the siding. Once, twice, 3 times. The metal vibrated with each strike, not hard, but firm, purposeful. I could barely breathe. My fingers hovered over the flare gun in the drawer, but I didn't dare move. The thing outside wasn't some dumb animal. It was studying the structure, almost like an engineer, carefully planning its next move. Then it stopped. The tapping ceased, and for a moment I thought maybe it had lost interest. But then came the sound, low, guttural, like a throat clearing behind a snarl. It wasn't a roar. It wasn't a warning. It sounded disappointed, as if it realized that the shack walls were too solid, the door too strong to break down, as if it knew exactly what it was dealing with. The creature dragged its claws slowly down the length of the wall, metal squealing under its strength, then stepped back into the dark. I didn't move. I didn't blink. I waited for hours, convinced every shadow was it coming back. At the morning shift change, I pulled 3 guys aside and told them what happened. 2 laughed. 1 didn't. Mark, a heavy equipment operator from Wabaska, didn't say a word until the others walked off. Then he asked, "Did it try to get in?" I froze. "Yeah," I said. "I think so. It didn't attack the shack, but it seemed to search for a way in. Then it gave up and disappeared." He nodded slowly, lips pressed tight. "Same thing happened to a cousin of mine, north of Slave Lake. Wasn't lucky enough to be behind a door." That was all he said. He walked out before I could ask more. A few nights later, someone vanished. It was a new guy, Daniel, a millwright fresh out of Edmonton. He'd been sent to check a frozen valve at Pump Station 5. Radios were clear when he left. After 30 minutes, no one had heard back. We assumed his radio had died, standard issue junk. But when they found his toolbox and thermos at the site with no sign of him, things got quiet. No blood, but prints. A trail leading into the woods. When our supervisors discussed it, Mark and I looked at each other and didn't say a word. We both knew. The next day, someone said they'd found what was left of Daniel, high up in a tree, a few hundred feet into the woods beyond the containment berm. I didn't see it myself, but I heard it was bad, really bad, ripped apart, bones shattered like they'd been chewed on, half of him missing. The guy who found him didn't come in for his shift, just left, packed up and flew home. They kept it quiet, but word spreads fast when you're that isolated. I kept thinking about the thing sniffing the wall of my shack. I had been lucky. If that fortified shack hadn't been there, I would have ended up in that tree. I quit that same day.